Recording. All right, here we are. We're at PDX, about to fly out. And I was just getting started on Paloma must have detected I was going to get on some philosophical topic about my life. Hold on.
Because should we record?
We should record this. So I'm going to try and make it so that our voices are the same
Yeah, we'll fix it.
volume. All right. Yeah, so like I was saying, I just quit my job today. I put in my 2-week notice, which I've only done so many times. This is like the 4th time I've sent an email like that. And was just thinking about how I am feeling about it. And my next plans, which are hopefully to get a job at like a shelter or a home of some kind, ideally with 2 night shifts.
A week.
2 a week, 2 night shifts a week, plus whatever else. And yeah, I was just about to say, like, one fear I have is I'm just gonna like wake up one day and be like, this was just such a stupid idea or something, you know what I mean? Like, what on earth am I doing? Like, why am I doing this? Like, this was just a weird, like, manic episode or something that drove me to, like, do all of this. I mean, but I guess that's unlikely because this is, like, years in the making, really. But,
There was nothing sudden about this.
yeah, there's nothing sudden about this. And in fact, I delayed leaving my job intentionally so that I could just like collect a couple more paychecks to make, I don't know, just to like make certain that things would give it a good chance of going well.
Yeah, like you thought about what kind of runway, like financial runway you needed. And then you still stayed a little longer to make sure that there was, even to that, there was a buffer
Right.
of savings. So
Yeah. And, you know, to that point, looks like Bo's probably going to need some oral surgery. That's going to cost maybe thousands of dollars. We don't know yet. Hopefully not. And so it's fine. It's good. This is why I held on longer. So, yeah, I guess that's all I had to say was, am I going to wake up one day and just be like, what the fuck? This is so stupid. I'm hoping.
what are some of the things that would happen or could happen that would make you feel that like regret?
Yeah, like some hypotheticals. I think.
Yeah, scenarios.
I think if I detect that like the work is futile and like so horrifically mismanaged, as like not just mismanaged but like managed to deliberately make things fail, you know, if I like detect that that's the situation, I could see myself getting pretty like quickly burnt out, I guess. What else?
That's an interesting one in that as someone who spent a long time in like homeless and transitional housing services, what I hear in you is not that you're not moving on the hunt on the night shift on like being of service that way because you want to see how a beautifully managed system of services functions.
Very true.
That was one of the things that ended up being important to me later in that career, is like I really wanted to learn from the people making systems that were really dignified and respectful and really functional. But that's not why you're doing it. And so I just wonder with that scenario, let's say that one of the places you're working at, there are aspects of it that are not managed well or that are really frustrating. Guess I'm curious. I feel like there will still be data that the hunch wasn't like to work within really functional services. That would be cool. Because then you feel like every hour you put in is really an hour well used towards others' needs.
Yeah.
I almost feel like that it might be helpful in if that scenario comes up for you to have your own like coaching question to yourself. Like for me, and when I worked in kind of social services, it was things like, well, am I still learning something that really deeply matters to me? And if so, then for how long? Am I okay dealing with this boss, with that issue? Like really months, where it's like, for how many months am I okay? Because I want to finish this X or Y learning. I want to finish my role as this or that, or I want to set up the next person for like, what's your goal, I guess?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think you're right that this whole idea of me being upset that things are mismanaged, it's not really on point because of my like drives personally, which is like, I think still on a micro level of just like really just me and whoever's there that like has not a lot that like there's parts of this that shouldn't have anything to do with how the organization's managed, that's like not what I'm interested in anyway. So I think even if it is imperfect, that's fine, because something that I would be interested in doing is like making something good happen in some imperfectly managed thing, which is, I think we probably find ourselves in that position a lot. So what was the question? Coaching questions?
Like, what's a question for yourself should you find that scenario happens? Because I don't think it can be really it is often very demoralizing to find ourselves in systems that aren't allowing us to be in service to others the way that it seems they also are asking us to be in service to them, and that blocks us, like
Right.
at a clinic I worked at, like there was a few months where I felt like 2/3 of my job was looking at Excel sheets to submit reports to prove to funders who never visited our clinic that they should give us money again.
Yeah.
And it was like the skill set that I provided was so sadly mismatched for that job. Like I had I had better things to do.
Right.
And it was really painful to like be caught in a system that all of a sudden put me in this so far from in service.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, there was a waiting room full of people in pain and distress, and I was like, sorry, I need to look up with some fucking Excel sheets.
Right.
Like, to prove to strangers that they should give us money when like if they just fucking visited.
Yeah.
You're like, fuck your Excel sheets, just visit and see what we're doing here, like the work we're doing here. So I think it can be, I asked that not to be like, oh, that's not what you're doing it for. It's more like, because it can be demoralizing when the system's a little or very broken.
Yeah.
It can be helpful to have a question for yourself. It could be as simple as like, oh, wait, what's my goal here? Or what was my goal? Or it could be like, which part makes me want to stay here a little longer, and which part makes me want to actually, like, it's time for a change.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
Either of those ring a bell for you?
For sure. I think, well, like you just said, like, I think it's totally possible that some places would like quickly discover that I'm really capable of doing some sort of like task like that.
Yeah, like dev or technical or
Yeah, it's
you
like
cannot tell them.
I have to just not tell them,
Don't
I
tell
think.
them. No, don't tell them. They are in need of that, but that's
Yeah.
that's not what your soul is hungry for right now.
I will just not tell them.
I hate to say
Then
that, but
I'll tell them in like a year or something. Like, oh, I actually was a programmer for like 12 years before this. What? We need you in that computer room in the back.
update our website.
Can you update our website?
Funders are asking for an updated website.
We used to have this thing on the website where you could log in or something.
Can you make a thing where volunteers track their hours? Because our funders need a report of volunteer hours. Sorry.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
have an issue with philanthropic systems.
Yeah. I'm not gonna do that. I think that actually might make me quit. If they had me like doing that, I'd be like, I'm certainly not gonna do this.
Yeah.
Here. Yeah. I think the main question for me is gonna be like, is there anything I'm doing on a personal level that is like genuinely useful to the people like coming in and out of this place? And if the answer is sufficiently yes, then I'm probably good for a while. I think that's kind of all I'm looking for. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So that's scenario number one of what could happen that would make you regret quitting your job.
Right.
Is there others that come up for your brain?
I mean, I would expect that. Say, like, rather than 2 night shifts, there's no way I can do it without taking like 4 or something.
Oof. Right.
And I like, if I search for a while and the only place that would take me needs me to do like 4 or 5 night shifts a week, I might do it for a while. I just wouldn't be surprised if I am like taxed much faster and rethinking things. If they can't be flexible enough to like cut it down.
I think doing that for 4 weeks and then asking me like, I think I can't do it. I think I'll have to go down
Yeah.
in order to keep the job. My guess is they'll be like, okay, yeah.
That would be cool though. I would be really down to be like, it's like, okay, the only shift we have right now is like all night shifts. It's 4 days a week, 10-hour shifts. I think I would take that. I'd be like excited to do that. That like, there's a little flame of like, oh, that sounds actually good. I like how like impossible that sounds compared to what I've been doing. But yeah, I think maybe after a month, I would imagine they'd perhaps be able to just like cut it back a few days.
Yeah, because it's taxing, but you'll know
Right.
what that is for you. 4 weeks might not be a lot, or might be the most. Okay, well that seems really both realistic and like navigable. Navigables. Are there others?
I guess if something feels like, if like coworkers are toxic or something, or I'm feeling like consistently threatened or something in a way that seems like unmanageable and like unsupported. I don't imagine this happening. But maybe you got problems everywhere you go, and there's like a certain amount of feeling threatened that I'm very prepared for. So
I think that's fair to say psychological safety needs to be at a bare minimum, whatever that means to you, like provided and supported.
yeah,
Obviously physical safety, but that's a given. But psychological it needs to be an organization that is designed for that for its workers. And that's
yeah, and like another thing too I can imagine is like, there's like some chance out there where an organization has had people working there for so long that they are like, they have just grown fully cynical of the whole thing, and they are all at the point where they hate their jobs. I think that just like creates problems. You see it a lot in my line of work, and it's never great. So,
Yeah, even that, like, it is really rampant in social services that people stay there forever. Almost as like I call it like a way to feel. It feels very like power centered or like ego centered, where they treat clients or patients, whatever, however they're referred, people seeking services, they kind of treat them like a little bit condescending, like they're idiots.
yeah.
At least behind their, and behind closed doors, and that makes them feel better about themselves. But they keep the job because then they get to feel like their life is superior every day to others. And one of the clinics I worked at, I would say 70% of the staff when I started was like that.
Okay.
And it
so
was,
I should brace myself a little bit for like cynical.
yeah.
Okay, that's part of the
It's
work.
that wasn't true at other clinics, but it is, and it wasn't true at some, like, for example, like, I wonder, I don't know, like, for example, nursing home, or like a home for like, I don't know. I think it depends on the organization and the service population. But like, for example, it didn't happen with when I had social services when I was working with young children. That was less common. I don't know if that was just, but it definitely happened in the beginning with when I was working with folks that were facing homelessness. And but what was really interesting is that they all found it. There was a thing that like the staff would be like, "Oh, it's so charming because you're so new that you're so optimistic and patient." It was like cute to them.
Yeah.
Like, you'll learn is what they always said. You'll learn. You'll realize soon that you can't keep being this way.
Right.
And I remember in my mind just being like, "You're wrong."
Why don't you just quit your job already?
Yeah. Why? But then I realized why they don't.
Yeah.
It's because I think they don't realize unconsciously that they're getting a little bit of a ego or power or a sense of significance by treating others that way, And so, but they still get to say they work, right, in social services.
Yeah.
As if they're doing a service.
Right. You're showing up every day and just like shitting on the whole
on
thing.
the patient. So like, don't. So I remember just thinking like, "You're wrong." And luckily at one of these clinics, the manager changed. And when that happened, slowly, and I would say like slowly as in like across 6 months, the environment changed, and the folks either got fired or just left because it was like essentially they were no longer, they're like,
Yeah. The vibe.
their
changed.
attitude wasn't welcome. And
Right.
those of us who like didn't want that, they started feeling like the outcasts for always being cranky and shit talking the patients, or being rude to the patients or condescending. They were the odd ones out. And so really within 6 months or a year, like that clinic, again, thanks to the manager, it just became full of people who like were just, they're there to be of service and to learn how to be of service and to treat others, just treat everyone with like this goddamn respect. So I'm glad I held out, but that was my choice because I didn't feel insulted by the other staff. I think that's a key thing, what you mentioned. It wasn't, I wouldn't call it a toxic workplace. It was just uncomfortable to see people treated this way.
Well,
And my coworkers weren't like horrible to me. They just were like condescending, being like, "Oh, honey, you're too young in this game." And I was like, "I'm not really that young," But anyway, so yeah, I think it's a good thing to keep an eye out for and have your own boundary. Be like, how much is yeah.
Yeah, I think like too, I mean, I would suspect that as far as like toxic workplaces, um, there's probably less like political maneuvering, power plays, backstabbing than in all the jobs I've worked, where that's just like normal. It's like, it's actually just part of your like skill set is like maneuvering
Right.
and power plays. It's like part of your it's like a reflection of your intellect that you're able to like maneuver and backstab effectively to rise through the ranks or something. And I just kind of doubt
Yeah.
that it's quite like that at places like we're describing.
Well, there's not as much upward movement possible, and so it sadly limits
Right.
a lot of that.
Yeah.
Because
You can't go anywhere anytime soon.
it's really limited. I mean, I worked at quite a few, and it was always very limited. I think there's other ways that there's like power grabs, and that's just like in the little moments, right? I mean, humans, when they feel powerless, they'll always find a way to grab it where they can, because
Yeah.
that's not a good feeling, obviously, either. But your point, which is you've done shitty workplaces before, so it's not like this would be your first time if that came up.
Yeah. No, I'd recognize it quick and it wouldn't be
Right.
surprising or like bewildering to me.
Right. So that scenario is also navigable.
Navigable.
Yeah, that's all feeling really pretty damn good.
I'm pretty excited. I was like saying this morning, like sending out my 2-week notice email was like, it was like no more significant feeling than like canceling a shift or something. It was like probably no one's gonna like, I might get a response like, oh yeah, good luck on your next thing. Just, I don't think it's just gonna like go by like a breeze, and it's just kind of funny. I don't know. We get really like attached to the idea that our jobs like need our just like badly need us. I mean, sometimes they do. I guess, sometimes they do, but
I think it's a really helpful thing to know that everyone is replaceable, not because they're not valuable or unique, but because human systems are, even the crappy ones, are adaptable. And humans are resourceful. I think it's different you're not devaluing yourself or shitting on yourself to know that if you leave, nothing collapses. Not because you weren't so valuable and skilled and really appreciated, but simply because. And if it does, I mean, should that ever happen, like a system actually collapses because one person leaves, it was going to collapse eventually, like very soon anyway.
yeah.
Because that's just like the most weirdest system. Even like the most toxic places, if they're the one awesome person working there left. Humans adapt. Systems
Yeah.
just are flexible more than we give them credit for. So,
Right.
airport sounds. Yeah. I feel like children at airports are just saying out loud what everyone else is suppressing.
Oh yeah. We all want to just scream and cry right
Put
now.
me down. Let me go. Should we check really quickly, pause to see what's going on with our delayed flight?
Yeah, we're probably boarding soon. We can probably just wrap it up.
Let me see.
All right, we're back. Our flight's been delayed for like 4 hours or something. which,
So much recording time.
yeah, lots of time to hang out.
Lovely
Each-
pediatrics.
Mm-hmm.
What are worse airports?
There are worse airports. Well, we covered my change of,
Potential regrets.
yeah, potential regrets with this plan that I'm really excited about, actually. I'm letting myself just be excited because that's what you're probably supposed to do in life. And
Good job, yeah.
somewhere way back when bought I bought into this idea that there was just a certain way to do things. I don't know. There's a lot to say about this. But
I think one of the loveliest feelings in the world is the feeling when you give notice at a job. No matter how sweet it was once, I'm always a big fan of that feeling.
yeah, it is a nice feeling. I've had some notices that were really more pointed feeling or something. Like, this notice isn't going to be that big a deal. I've left a couple places where it was like I was like, they were like gonna be a mess.
Yeah.
But it's never really that bad, I guess. It's just like someone's gonna be inconvenienced for a while.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter that much. But yeah, I'm temporarily free here. Lord knows I'm not gonna be going above and beyond the next 2 weeks. Although I do, feel compelled for whatever reason. For some reason, I feel compelled to not do a bad job. I like doing a good job. So,
It feels good to leave on good terms. You know?
yeah, I like to know that I did like enough and I didn't just like screw anyone over or something. But
It does not feel good to phone it in.
yeah, I don't really like
That's why
phoning
you
it in.
quit, so that you don't start phoning it in.
Right. So, um, what?
Scraping vegan cheese off wax paper while Derek's talking. I'm still focused. I'm listening.
Yeah, I was thinking of like what we're doing today here. So, like, what are your plans for the plane? Are you
On the
working?
plane?
Yeah.
Well, one question for you is, I think I've uploaded all the pod recordings we have to the Google Drive. And they're on this laptop that we brought. And I'm curious to have you listen to some of them. Just essentially, like, do we move them into the folder that's like, it's good as is, even though maybe our voices aren't perfectly, like, just the raw recording is good enough because it's like real enough. Though there are, like, in some of them a little quieter. I am a little quieter.
Yeah.
I realize I don't project
I know.
when we're recording.
Even now, I'm a little worried.
Oh.
I'm a little worried now because I think I just talk louder than you. So, like, you're like whispering over there, which is fine. We're going to have to run this one through the AI anyway because there's so much noise.
Yeah, it's weird. I think part of me I wonder if it's a thing that some part of me wants to retain. I'm guessing, but I wonder if it's that some part of me wants to retain the, like, intimate, quiet nature of our conversations. And one way I'm doing that is by not acting like I'm recording and projecting into the microphone, because, like, to be quieter is to be,
More natural.
Yeah. And also it makes me more pensive. I think when I project, I wonder if some part of my brain tips a little bit into trainer mode. Like, I'm getting the signals that I'm training, or where I do obviously project.
Yeah, there's like a performance element to it.
Yeah, versus just like being in a quiet conversation with you that happens to be recorded. Which, so I could just get it. I could just do that, and like right now, I'm holding it a lot closer to my face and still getting to feel.
Yeah,
I mean, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, well that's what matters.
I'm just thinking. I'm thinking about the
Yeah.
the listener a lot, which we had this discussion after one of our podcasts because I am like it's really natural for me to talk to someone who's not in the room. It's like I've been doing that for a long time anyway, just like when I'm alone, I'm like having imaginary conversations. So like we had this discussion because it's like maybe kind of evident that I'm talking to the listener.
Versus sometimes to me.
Yeah, I'm very like conscious of the fact that there's a third person in the room here that isn't like with us, but is inside of the microphone, and it like affects the quality of our conversation. It feels a little different, but like I personally gain a lot, I think, from having it done that way. But yeah. So back to your point. I think I just have to go through and listen to each of them and we'll decide. But the whole point of this was that these conversations wouldn't be polished too much.
Yeah, so maybe the the metric is the sound good? Yes, no. But can you hear Paloma enough? Well, can you hear both parties enough to understand what they're saying? And that's it. If you can, let's just go with it. I'm okay with that. I'm also, I mean, only because when we do the AI noise, like the equalizer and things like that, loudness stuff, or the noise reduction, we both noticed that in one of them, that was the most severe one because we were at heart, like at a coffee shop. So that was just like obviously the most filters that had to be applied by the AI magic software, but it did affect your voice. Sounded a little bit more robotic, and that I definitely don't want that.
Oh, really? I got used to it pretty fast. I was like, this is fine.
Okay. I think it also wasn't doing it the whole time as much. It just kicked in the beginning. Okay. I like the intimate nature feeling of it, and so I also noticed that I moved the microphone away. I also noticed that in some of the noise reduction that it did, like when we were driving to the vet, because there was we were on the highway and it was really the air was loud and around the car. I noticed that in that noise reduction, it almost cut out the noise of driving so much that we just sounded like we were in a podcast studio for some of the time, and I did not fucking like that. I just like really like it when you can hear the kind of room or space we're in a little bit.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be distracting, like, you know, a good chunk of it was from how much noise. But so it's a long way of saying, I guess when you listen to them, maybe color code on the desktop folder, like red, which ones you're like, there's enough parts where I really can't hear you or I, and let's run that one. And we can say how many decibels.
Right.
And we'll try maybe lower decibels. We can try that.
Yeah.
Okay. So we can, I guess that's for you if you wanted to do that on the flight. That doesn't answer what I want to do on the flight.
I also just realized I have this tendency to discuss like tasks. What tasks? What stuff are you to work on?
Is that bad?
I don't know. It's definitely just a thing that I do. It's not bad. It's just like maybe you don't want to talk about what things you're gonna work on when you fly. It's like just natural for me to ask that question, but yeah.
I think if it's natural for you to ask it, then you ask it.
Yeah.
I do think it's a word in Spanish, lo cotidiano. Lo cotidiano. Did we already say that I'm Mexican and my first language was Spanish?
I think we just leave everyone to guess.
The background.
Yeah.
The background.
Through context clues of hours of talking.
Yeah. There's a word that we don't use in English very much, but I looked up and I guess there is an English word for it. We just don't use it the way we use it a lot. And it's a very beautiful poetic word. Lo cotidiano, which is the quotidian, I guess in English, and it means the kind of sweet little things of every day. Like what every day is made up of. Lo cotidiano. Cosas cotidianas, like quotidian things, the daily things. And I think that is what we discuss. And so it should be what then naturally might get recorded, such as what do we do on the plane, or what are we doing that day, or what's next on the day's agenda. I think it's the things that we miss out when we live so far from friends and family. By far, I mean like 4 miles. You just kind of miss what each other's little moments look like, or what are they doing.
Yeah.
So, you know what's funny is on the flight back from Richmond, I guess, you were like furiously doodling the little animals on the iPad. Actually, that's when you started it, maybe.
Yeah, I started it on the flight and I was like pretty happy with how it came out, which sometimes happens if I just spend like 10 hours on something. It tends to like look pretty good.
I felt a little guilty that I kept looking over at you and you were just like creatively producing this cool stuff, because when I fly, and then I realized doggies at the airport, Portland airport, full of dogs. Come on, bro. You know what I just realized I call a lot of animals? Brub.
Brub?
It's like bub and bra.
Yeah, I find myself calling the cats like bruppy. Bruppy. Bruppy.
Last night,
Poppy.
Derek has a... Oh, there's so many good environment sounds right now. Well, soothing how little you can understand what she's saying. Very tangent that Derek may not want me to say, but you have this, the language you speak to Bowen.
Oh, yeah. Should I do it?
Yeah.
Papa. Ba. Papa. Ba. Ba. Papa. Ba. Like, if I just keep doing that, that's like the only thing that he will like maybe come to you if you're speaking like that.
Well, what's funny is last night I woke up at 4 a.m, felt very awake, and so I went and like saw that Bo was chilling on the sofa, but awake.
Yeah.
So I went and gave him a little lymphatic massage, and he started purring.
Oh man, that's a great sign. He's got so much like sinus problems that he doesn't purr much. I think something bad happened when he got surgery one time.
Yeah, he started purring. I'll show you the part he started purring, which is the part he started purring last time, and I thought that was really interesting. There's a particular thing. Anyway.
Good.
So he started purring, and so I got up and I got the sense that he was like, "Are we going?" And I kind of wanted to be like, "Yeah, let's go to bed. Like, let's come to bed, with us," because Ralph was in the bed with us. And so I got up and he just kind of was like, stood up and was just looking at me. Probably was more like, "Wait, are you feeding me?"
Yeah.
And so I said, "Papa."
Uh-huh.
And he jumped out and followed me into the bedroom. And I was like, "Oh my God,
That's the language.
Papa." Love it.
What even is that? That's not like a sound that cats make. So that's all he responds to. He must just sense the pure good-heartedness of it.
Yeah. And that it's just for him.
Yeah. That's his name, I guess. That's just for him. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. He gets it. Papa. He just instantly was like, and jumped down and followed me into the bed. It was very sweet. Anyway, and then he proceeded to wake you up. So, anyway.
Oh, yeah, he started meowing, and I knew he was going to be gunning for food.
Yeah, I might have done that by accident.
That's all right.
But hey, got him some lymphatic massage. What? Oh, so we were on the plane on the Richmond coming back, and you were just like furiously producing beautiful, creative things on the flight. And I felt crappy, and then later gave myself permission to be like, it's okay. It doesn't mean anything that I'm not like that, because on flights, I very rarely get anything done that is productive. I just want to zone out.
Yeah.
And so like I just watch whatever I downloaded. But I'm actually feeling a little awake and fine. And I also can't sleep on the flight. I never can sleep on a plane. So can't do that kind of productive either. I don't love to be on the laptop. What am I working on? Oh, maybe this is when we describe what I'm working on, and I can then be like, what do I do? Okay, let's go. So I'm working on emails, drafting up like these currently fake, but kind of draft emails that if we were to do something like a residency, whether it's a week or like 2 or 3 months, that's more like a short-term rental for artists, all that, whatever, what that would look like. And I was thinking of typing it up to email to Peter so that he's essentially prototyping, who's coming for 5 days, stay with us, prototype the residency, so that he can give me feedback about, and it's a kind of email like, welcome to, or like things for, here's what you can expect joining us at this residency, including the social structure, the fact that like this isn't a program, if that's what we're calling it, where like you stay in your room all day and we don't talk to you. Like if you agree to this, it's to have this social rhythm together. So kind of like expectations and stuff like that. So that's one thing I'm working on because Peter's coming and I want to take advantage of that. Starting to get annoyed at that dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably confused.
That's very empathetic. You're right. Okay, so that's... Remind me what else I'm working on. I don't have that kind of working memory very well.
I mean, you don't have to be working on anything. Another thing too is you loathe flying a lot less than me. So like whatever you're doing is good because I dread flying so much. This is only a 2-hour flight, so I'm okay. But I think part of the reason is you're trapped for hours. And so me being able to actually get something done or fun or do something that's like something I actually want to do is like such a huge win for me on these things. But if I like didn't hate it so much, I mean, I might trade that for not hating it so much.
Yeah. Mom just been flying for so long. I was really little, to Mexico every year.
Yeah.
By myself and shit. I was like 10 years old and flying alone.
It's a short flight too, so like it will be up and down before you can even finish a movie.
Yeah, it's true. Okay. No, but I do want help remembering what I work on.
Oh, just generally? Well, we got the house transformation. Uh,
Oh yeah, we replaced the glass
yeah.
in the busted out window that had the. Which actually, I hurt my knee
Yeah.
moving a '70s air conditioner, which was so surprisingly heavy. Like
So heavy.
I think of ACs as heavy. I was prepared for heavy.
You know that thing
This
was...
was like a fridge.
Yeah, you know that air conditioner, even when it was brand new, was like a tenth as good as one now. That's a fourth of the size.
Ugh, yeah.
You just know. I don't know. That's my opinion. That thing probably was never very good.
No. So that's done. And then the next thing is going to be making the alcove bed, which
Yeah.
I described already. But I can't. I don't. Yeah, I guess I can't work on that on the plane because I already drew up the plans for it and the lumber list.
Yeah.
I already essentially forced you to give me all of your closet doors for that. That was my
Yeah,
last
yeah.
lumber list item.
You could have them.
They will get sawed. Yeah, so the space, that's just priority because I want it to be something interesting and homey and gosh, I hope a little bit magical for Peter when he gets here because that I think is a really big part of what we're prototyping. It's not just having people in the space, it's how they feel about being in the space.
Yeah, Peter's good too because he'll probably like give you more or less an honest opinion of what needs to change.
Absolutely.
Just be like, what is this? I haven't even met him. I'm just like inferring how he communicates based on stories.
Yeah, I think that's true. He will. So that matters a lot, but not a lot I can do while we're gone. Oh, I guess I could be listening to the episodes to flag it, but I want you to because I've listened to them enough.
You've done you've done like all of the legwork on that stuff for this so far. So I'm like ready to start doing some tedious audio files nonsense.
Well, I don't even mind how much I've done. It was more of that I want to make sure I've listened to them enough to know how I think I feel about them. And it's like I want to make sure that at this stage you're part of the decision-making process about the audio volume quality. So I wasn't even, just for the record, I wasn't complaining about how much I've done. It's more of like,
Oh yeah.
50-50 collab means you get, involved at this stage of figuring out what volume differentials we're okay with. So there's that. So, okay, never mind. There's not that. Oh, you know what? So one other thing I'm doing is thinking about and writing, starting to design for the 3-day intensives, which I can start emailing people about anytime, like getting the word out and getting people's feedback about the format. So one thing I could do is write a draft of what that first email would be. Like, hey, I'm thinking of doing these 3-day intensives. Here's a survey. If you would be interested in the future for yourself or an employee or a coworker, would you fill out this survey to give me a chance? And it's everything from like, what days, right? Like, do people prefer like a 3-day weekend intensive versus during the week? Because that way it counts as part of their work hours. That kind of thing.
Yeah. 3-day intensive.
All the way to the programs. Like, do I launch the coaching certificate first? Do the leadership one because that's already what people know me to do, or do the like a public speaking one? Those are the 3 I'm thinking about starting with first.
Mm-hmm.
If there's no one that's going to be living with us yet in this space, then those would happen in my living room.
I haven't heard about this public speaking one. That's a
Oh.
cool idea. That's a great idea. But we don't need to get into it right now.
Yeah. What? I did a 4 or 5 week group coaching group twice in 2020 on Zoom. That would be the course, except it would be across 3 days instead of obviously these 2-hour sessions, 5 weeks. And it would be so much more practice because you're in person together for 3 days. Probably the same size, 6 to 8 people max. The feedback I got so the first one was a real prototype, and it was the first time that I really taught a public speaking course, like properly. And so the second one where I like worked out the kinks that the first group helped me, but via their feedback. The second one I got really, really amazing feedback, which was like, I focused a lot on the actual anxiety and psychology, essentially the neuropsychology of public speaking anxiety.
Yeah.
And we worked on that the first half of the course, versus techniques for like your tone, how much to move your arms, the content, 3 bullet points. So we didn't focus on content as much, and we didn't focus on like tactics to look like a TEDx speaker or sound like a TEDx speaker.
Yeah.
We focus on how to feel that you deserve to be speaking to a group
Yeah.
and that people do want to hear you.
I think the reason I like this one is because this impacts your life, not just in times when you need to do public speaking. I think that this is bigger than that. So that just like instantly sounds interesting to me, especially given your experience.
Yeah, because I think loud airport carts going by. That's a cute one. Like a big
Why is it so loud?
baby aqua cart that
Got like off-road wheels.
off-road wheels on it. Cute.
Are we-
What time is it?
Well, 20. We have a while.
1:30?
All right.
Should we go check? Wait, let's see. Yeah, the public speaking course. It's funny that you already had that intuition, because I think one of the things that, well, one, a lot of people don't know how much I sucked at public speaking.
Dude, this is so good.
Yeah, like I think a lot of people are just like, oh, you're just saying that. And I'm like, no, you can ask one of the clinic managers, Angie, who saw one of the first conference talks I gave. So I pitched a conference talk so I could get a free ticket to the National Healthcare for the Homeless conference in DC. They accepted my talk. I was absolutely, I knew that I was an expert at what I was talking about. I felt actually quite confident about that. And so I felt that I deserved to speak about it. That wasn't the issue. And the room held maybe 100 people once I got there. There was maybe 20 that were there. And I just, I think that weirded me out, to like speak to such an empty, huge, echoey room.
Wow.
Where you could just hear when people like coughing, like.
Yeah.
And two, I didn't realize that me talking for an hour and a half about the thing I'm super passionate and dorky about, which by the way was like how to create a volunteer-run specialty referral program at your homeless clinic. That was my topic.
An hour and a half was how long this was?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why do they even like let people talk for that long?
Maybe it was an hour. It was not an insignificant amount of time. And I realized that just because I cared a lot about the topic, and that I knew a lot about the topic, and had, because I created one of these programs from scratch, turns out that doesn't mean that people found it interesting.
Yeah.
Because right away, within like 10 minutes, I could see that they were so bored. About 20 minutes into it, people started leaving.
Damn.
which of course made me even more
Yeah.
anxiety filled and
mean,
quiet and like muddled.
Yeah, you'll see that, even like with bands and stuff, it can like really jostle like performers when if people like get bored and leave or something.
Yeah, it's a bad feeling. So, yeah, I would say quite a few people left by the time I finished. I felt horrible. I didn't even ask Angie, my boss, how she think I did because I knew it was so horrible. She was in the room. I could tell she was embarrassed for me. She's like an incredibly kind person and wasn't going to be like, "What the fuck," But I could tell
That's tough.
that she knew that I knew
Yeah.
it did not. It was not well done.
What do you think were the things that like what were the issues? What were like the three big problems with that performance or whatever?
Oh yeah, like if we did like a before and after, what I would have done differently this time around.
Yeah.
I mean, one, I think knowing a little bit about adult learning theory is really helpful. Just, like if you're going to be teaching, because I wasn't like entertaining people in that one. I was teaching them how to create a very specific kind of clinical program. Like that's real tactical stuff. So that's you're teaching, right? You're not like
Yeah.
this isn't a lecture. This is like these folks hope to take away some tactics. In that case, I would have treated it like a workshop. And one of the first things is that every 10 minutes, they need to have an activity.
Yeah.
And that can be a self-reflection. Like you can be like, okay, take 3 minutes of quiet right now to write down what are the kind of specialty medical appointments that your patients need most. And that's 10 minutes in.
Okay.
One of the other things is like they need to start talking to each other within usually some people say the first 7 minutes. Otherwise, after that, the more time that goes by before they can start talking to each other,
Yeah.
even if it's just one person, the more disengaged they will be and quieter and more passive later in the workshop. So there's some like tactics like that, say workshop tactics. But I think more importantly, I wasn't prepared for it to feel so awry so early on.
Okay.
And so I think my usual passionate self, confident self crumbled instantly.
Oh, did you retreat to a place of safety or something while you were talking just to like get through it?
Before I opened my mouth, that I had already retreated for some inner place of safety.
There we go. This I am familiar with. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
This will like kill it. This will kill your performance if you retreat internally.
Internally, before I even opened my mouth, I could feel that the energy in the room, I wasn't wrong, but the energy in the room was affected because such a large part of the room was empty.
Sure.
I think humans pick up on that vibe, especially these conference rooms are deeply, horribly designed.
Yeah.
For what you're supposed to be doing there.
I mean, it would take a really strong-hearted person to handle that, especially the first time.
Yes. It was a big moment career-wise. I felt that. And so to feel it was botched before I even started talking, just when I entered the room and got the vibe.
Yeah.
It was pretty rough. I'd worked so much on the script, which is what everyone does.
Uh-huh.
You work stressfully on the script, and you don't realize that is the least important part.
Okay. So
alas.
Right. So there's so what you mean by that is there's maybe like being in the moment and picking up on what people need to hear or some spontaneity about what needs to be said a certain way or
Well, I think a lot of it is like, I think the way I prepare now is like, it's not to say that I don't botch speaking gigs now. It's that it's night and day. And what a botched one looks like now is still like, you know, a B plus.
Okay.
That's a botched one now. And that was just like a solid D.
Yeah.
That was a solid D. I'm not being unkind to myself. It was just a D. It's fine.
Right.
But now I'm like, the worst that I probably would get from an audience is, and I know that's because, you know, I've collected enough feedback forms. Even the botched ones are like a B plus, and I'm like, sorry, y'all. I don't know. Something went awry. So sorry about that. I mean, I never apologize, but, you know, in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, that was weird.
Yeah.
No, like, I go for A plus now.
So you've adjusted based on feedback you've just gathered intuitively and like written, or people will tell you directly, maybe. This is like years in the making.
This is years in the making, but I think the part that I realized most after watching a lot of other public speakers and actually really, and then having people ask me, you know, like I think at some point they're just like, oh, you're so natural up there. What are your tips? And I'm like, I think if you get that question asked enough, as a trainer, I guess I'm just like, okay, wait, what is it? Right? Because I don't want to give them. I've been to public speaking courses. I've looked at, like, asked other people who took public speaking courses, tell me about it, what was helpful, what wasn't. And the thing that I walked away from, like all that research and data gathering and my own experience, and then watching people who are good public speakers, is that, like, don't fucking worry what you're doing with your hands. If you're saying too much, that's not like I just did it. It's not what it's like. So it's more of what are the things. One, so I don't remember specifically what we cover in that in the course. I just remembered that really like half of it was on the inner dialogue, the inner voices that really get loud. The inner critic, the inner, and so we work a lot on that. And then we think about what are the behaviors, not that the audience wants you to do, like make sure that you move your left hand and your right hand at approximately equal amounts of time, which multiple people have told me that they get that advice from public speaking courses. And I'm like, there is zero research that is relevant. Okay. And that sounds so anxiety producing to be thinking so much about your hands.
Yeah.
And so instead, like when someone, we think about what is the posture that you naturally take when you are feeling that you're getting to be either an interesting or a passionate or a fun version of yourself.
Yeah.
So like, what do you look like when you're, say, for one of the students in the course, she said, when I'm making dinner for my family, I feel I'm always like laughing a lot. My posture's probably pretty good. Yeah. I'm moving. I've got stories to tell about the day. I got jokes. And all of us were like, oh, you're cooking dinner for your family.
You're cooking. This is brilliant.
Yeah. So we're like, that's it. We're going to hone in on what is your inner life in that moment. And you're going to kind of like play act it for us for a little bit. And this was on Zoom. It's going to be so fun in person. And all of us were able to see her posture, her demeanor, what her shoulders were doing, what her face was doing. And so we could be like, okay, that is the only, like, it's the only version of yourself that we're going to focus on you being.
I think that this is amazing because this surely changed her life in some little way, because now every time she gets to present, she's just like, oh yeah, it's like when I'm cooking. I
know how to be this person.
Yeah, that's like this. That's what they want. I like have been learning about hand movements, which, you know, we probably got that as we were like, we looked at 100 of the top speakers and they all move their hands like this. And so
do that.
Yeah, it's like, oh man, we are not going the right direction to get there. That's so brilliant.
Yeah, and so it was so, I think the other thing that changes is to keep telling your brain, you already know how to be this person. You're not transforming yourself. You're not transforming, you're not asking yourself to be fake or forcing anything. You're just like re-tapping into that way of being, and letting yourself be that and in a different context. And then you get to do it in front of others so that you, in a very safe space, get feedback back, like, that people love it.
Yeah.
Because I think there's other things, like people are like, oh, I sorry. One of the people was like, I'm sorry. I'm really, one of my biggest points of anxiety is that I will never look professional enough because I always have to read my notes. And every public speaking coach I've had is like, you at some point need to let go of your notes. And so it just now causes this deep anxiety that kicks in when it's time, quote unquote, for me to memorize my notes. And so I just was like, have you ever just tried reading your notes?
Right.
And then working on the other stuff, like just being yourself? And she was like, no, because that's unprofessional. And I was like, there's no research about this. There's nothing that says that that's unprofessional. And she was like, what? And I was like, oh, you'll still want to engage, like look at your audience and read their energy. You can do that at the end of each paragraph. Like there's just ways to do it.
Right.
So if the thing that's causing you the most anxiety is that you don't have that kind of memory, which, heads up, lots of people don't, then just you're going to get to read your notes and we're going to work on how to be the person, whatever, you know?
Yeah.
And so at the first time, I could tell she didn't believe me. She was like, okay, sure, whatever. Let's try it with me reading my notes. The first time she did it, everyone in the rest of the class, she read her notes. She was being herself. She was whatever, the other tactics that she had identified for herself. And everybody was like, I didn't even notice you were reading.
Oh,
like, because you just seemed happy and excited to tell your story.
Right.
You just happened to like look down. And I was like, you're still working on like tonal differentiation that feels good to you, you know?
This is good.
Anyway,
I hadn't heard about this plan.
yeah.
We've talked about these like retreats and like you'll hit me with some ideas every now and then. And it's like, this one, I probably would see it and be interested, like given your background and everything. This one's like something that I would be like, whatever the business term is for like the first group that's available and interested or whatever.
Oh, who's that? Beta, at the launch, the test group?
Right. I would be like in that group that it like responds to the first advertisement or whatever.
Really?
I think this is a really good idea. Yeah, especially in person. If you had success on Zoom, it's going to be way more fun in person, and like in person with you in where it would be in our freaking house somewhere, right?
Living room.
Probably the living room. I think that's just like a really good environment for this to go down. I think this is a really good idea. If you wanted to do it, I would have guessed this is too close to your normal like work that you're trying to get away from.
No, the work I'm getting away from, I think it helped in one of the last conversations we had, I don't remember when, that identified that having someone that isn't being forced to show up at some workshop because their boss told them to.
Yeah.
I don't like that work.
Yeah.
I've tried to avoid it and usually can filter clients out, but it's, I don't know. 2, work that is to specifically benefit a corporation doing neutral or bad things to the world and improve their performance in some indirect or direct way, that I don't want to do that anymore. And in this case, it's like some public speaking matters to me because I think the thing that you said earlier, I've seen how it changed for myself and it's changed for those I've like supported in the past to carry themselves through the world differently.
Yeah.
It's not just more confidently, it's more of like, I think it's almost like you trust the world in a different way now because you realize that sharing parts of ourselves is actually like as old as time, right? Like standing up in front of a group is actually this gift we give to each other when we're doing it from the heart, out of a place of like excitement, passion, dorky interest, nerdiness, service. It's like it's just such a sweet thing to realize you can do it. And two, it really does change careers when you're 40% better in 3 months at public speaking. It just transforms. So people who like maybe are often not heard or marginalized because they're quiet, because they're not the loudest motherfucker in the room about their opinion, because they're, not white bros, bullies in tech. I don't know, like all those folks. We just need to hear more of them anyway. So
Some touching piano music starts playing as Paloma describes how improving your public speaking can change your life, not just professionally, but in the way that you like move through the world, which I truly believe. I think that this is like core. I think there's something really, really deep down about learning, getting a little better at that could definitely change your life. So
yeah, I think it also I just realized it's Somewhere Over the Rainbow, which is so perfect.
Right.
Somewhere over the rainbow. I think it also changes your relationship with your body.
yeah.
Because you no longer we focus so much on making friends with your anxiety system and your like fight or flight system versus telling yourself you're an idiot because you can't control it. I feel like we have a really different approach where we're like, this part of you is like so beautifully designed to keep you safe.
Yeah.
Fight or flight in the anxiety system. It's not doing anything wrong. It just we need to like do a little bit of a dance together to get to know it, and then to be like to collaborate with it and be like, thank you, and also in this way we're safe. And then we talk about funny things that I think a lot of people don't realize are. Is this when I? No, she got sad. We should talk about something nostalgic and sad and deep regrets we have in life.
Yeah, I regret not stepping up to the plate and learning how to speak in front of people. No,
Not too late.
it's not too late.
That's a live piano player, which is really cool. Here in PDX. Live musicians. Okay. I'm really excited that you're excited about that one.
That's a good one. Just that one hits all the points. That one triggers my intuition about what, I don't know, is a good idea.
Yeah, there's someone recently that I mentioned when they said, what kind of... actually, someone who's taken my courses and has signed up for like every course I've ever given. She's probably attended. And I talked to her recently and I told her about the retreats. And I said, would you, be up for me sending you this email, like an interest gathering email? And she said, well, what kind of retreats? And I told her the 3, and the last one was the public speaking one I mentioned. And she like gasped and she was like, I can't believe that I haven't taken that one from you before. And I was like, well, I've only really offered it once for reals, one as a test and then the one like refined. And she was like, why?
Yeah. All right.
I don't know why.
I think
That's
other
weird.
people will react similarly, which is like, we see you and the things you're good at or whatever, and maybe we could try and glean some of it from these other things that you've helped people with. But like this one's like a direct hit. But what's really funny to me about it is like, you know, you might like try and go to something like this to see if to like learn the secret sauce that you have, and you're just there coaching them on how to like be more themselves. I don't know. I just think it's kind of funny and perfect. So
I think that is my secret sauce.
right, exactly. Like your secret sauce is like purely just Paloma, and everyone else's is gonna be them. And I think that's really funny if people get to learn that.
Yeah. I think when people realize that them sharing the lovely parts of themselves
Right.
gives people so much joy and connection. And
Yeah.
when they hear that, see that, when they feel that feedback back from a group, that people are just like, I remember like in one of the groups, someone like shared a thing and you could tell she was nervous. You could tell her voice was shaky. Again, she wasn't like TEDx talker
Yeah.
level, like quote unquote skills. Her voice was still shaky. You could tell she was nervous, but she told this story. She'd been practicing how to kind of like be in her body and feel connected to the story she was saying in real time. And we record it. And at the end of it, everyone's eyes were like teary-eyed because they were just like, you've never told us that story. Like, and I think for her, that was the first time when she realized, like, my voice was shaky. I wasn't using my hands the way I was hoping I would. Like,
Yeah.
people could tell I was nervous and they fucking loved me.
Yeah.
They loved me for it.
This really matches with my perspective on on performance that we've talked previously about this, but like not thinking you know how it works and like checking off all the boxes as a means of like tricking people into thinking you're speaking like from the heart, because that I don't think that works. Maybe it does. Maybe some people can do that, but like I think really the better way to go is to like just like take each opportunity as a chance to like speak from your heart. Is there another way of phrasing that doesn't sound so cheesy? But
Well, I think the other thing too is it's a series of small experiments to show your body and your heart that you will be accepted
yeah,
and welcomed as you speak.
This is like such a good idea.
It's just like it's like you were not like expecting you overnight to believe it.
Yeah.
We just like slowly test a little bit and realize still not rejected, still accepted and welcomed here.
This is
Just a little more, and slowly that's how our bodies and our minds learn and form new neurological habits about this stuff. So anyways, okay, public speaking. Sounds like,
well, you're like the whole philosophy we've been talking about with Mirror House and what we wanted to build is like inherent in the way that you teach public speaking. So I just think it like is a perfect hit.
yeah.
It's because the underlying like thing that you're learning is like a really personal thing. So
It's so personal.
and it's about like acceptance, and that's really pretty fascinating. So yeah.
Yeah. So that's a 3-day intensive. So I could work on whatever that draft
Right.
might be. How's time?
Time 12:50. We could go sit over there.
We could. Just that way we won't miss it. This is energizing to kind of talk about. Else, I don't know if it's good or bad that I can't. Oh, the Post Capitalism Workbook.
Yeah.
Did I tell you that I'm calling it the 100-year project now?
I love it. This was my previous favorite idea. Now you've got like two just like home runs in my mind right now. But I really love this workbook, the 100-year workbook. You were trying to think of a name, and I was like, not able to help. I love it.
Yeah, so it started all when I first really started sharing with you that what my work was, because for really a month or two of dating, we didn't talk about our works.
Yeah, it didn't come up. We like literally didn't mention
We
it.
specifically left work out of our conversations for a really long time.
I do that now with everyone I meet.
Yeah, but we were spending a lot of time together.
Right.
And it was interesting that we both, we never said it, and we just wanted to maintain that boundary. So when I first started sharing with you that I was a leadership trainer and wanted to move away from that in some way, and one of the things was because I was most interested in this idea of post-capitalism, like the skills and that we would all need in such a world. And you were excited by this.
Yeah.
You were really into it.
Well, we've like, before this project of recording our conversations, we just like would talk, philosophy or something. We've talked a lot about it.
Yes. I think when we first started, I've been thinking about how much it evolved. When we first started, you were just excited that like I was looking into that. And then that evolved to me being like, what if instead there were videos instead of like these workshops? What if they were like videos? And then because you and I talked so much about it, I couldn't think of a way to do it without including you. Like it just was. And so then you kind of agreed to that. We're like, okay. So we started working on the videos.
Yeah, and I was like, I mean, whatever, we can try. We were like, we were setting up like camera and doing test shots, and the microphones were a big problem.
Where to shoot, the lighting, it was like, it was tricky.
Yeah, because I guess there was a big focus too on that one of making it like look pretty good. Well, actually, we had still just, I think that was something I was obsessed with. This was all a work in progress for a long time.
For a long time. So we were working out that, and I think I really got stuck in that because it was video and there was some production quality to it, and a learning curve about the recording.
Shoot, man, yeah.
Technology. So it was kind of slow, and that was fine. There's other things that we were working on, but where it is now, well, there's another thing. When I would tell people, I'd run into people and they're like, what are you working on now? Are you still doing leadership trainings? I was like, well, and I was like, working on this thing that's like a post-capitalist leadership training. The thing I kept hearing back from people close to me that I feel we share similar political views, let's call them similar economic views, is people had some version of, so it's like a futurist video project. And I was like, what do you mean futurist? I was confused. And then other people were like, so it's like an alternate universe kind of thing. And I was like, what do you mean an alternate universe? And what I realized is that a lot of books that you read about, late stage capitalism or whatever, or critiquing capitalism, they point out this really common phenomena that people find it easier to imagine the end of the world than the end of capitalism. And that's what I was hearing from people when I said, I'm working on a post-capitalist leadership skills project. Is they were like, oh, got it, you're working on post-apocalyptic worlds. And I was like, wait, what just happened? And I think I had read just enough about it, and I think I've been lucky to live in communities that were working within systems that explored alternatives to straight capitalism. That to me, I was like, no, all of us dip in and out of a capitalist system in everyday life. When you go to your public library or drop your kid off at school, you're not engaging in a capitalist system. You're engaging in a socialist collective system. both of those
Yeah.
are specifically socialist economic systems. They were not provided by capitalism at all. They continue. Actually, capitalism keeps threatening to take them away. And so, like when you drive on the road, that is a socialist system. And so all of us dip in and out of them all the time. So I'm really curious, as they increase, will we be ready to make sure that it's not our skill set that is the downfall of those systems? How we communicate, how we lead, how we share collaborative systems. So I couldn't get around what to call it then, because so that people didn't think I was working on a post-apocalyptic workbook.
Yeah.
Because then we were like, okay, what if it's a workbook first? Because I love making worksheets and workbooks for people to think through at their own pace, different concepts.
Yeah, I love this idea because, like, I think a lot of us have this sort of simmering anxiety about what's happening all the time, and it feels like there's nothing you can do. And a workbook, it's like such a nice thing you can like do, like that. It's like, you know, you could read a lot about it, but like just kind of like having some sort of interaction with it, I really feel like could help. God, what are the words? Like, just help have some comfortability with this thing that's just producing a lot of anxiety, which is being, I guess, scared of where we're headed.
Yeah, it is. Can it make us feel locked and want to just doom scroll instead? I know this isn't a term, but I think of like fluff. You know, there's like doom scrolling and there's like fluff scrolling.
Yeah.
Where we're just like, no, I don't do doom scrolling, but I just watch TikTok cat videos all day because my brain and heart can't handle more doom.
Yeah.
So yeah, alternatives to that. I do. So that workbook. I started. There's that podcast that I was listening to for a little bit. I haven't in a while. I think it's called The Long Now, where they feature lectures by people that talk about 100, 500-year approaches to problems.
Yeah.
Not 2-year approaches to problems or 4-year approaches to problems, like just based on a voting cycle, presidential cycles. And so I've tested it with only 2 people saying, oh, I'm working on something called a 100-year project workbook that's about how do we now engage in a system, or rather, how do we stay engaged in systems and connected so that our generation is doing its part towards the 100-year process of evolving away from capitalism. And the 2 people I said that to were just like, wait, what are we doing now? Some version of like, oh yeah, so wait, what are people doing now? Which was obviously night and day to, oh, you're working on a post-apocalyptic workbook.
Right. Think about what things we're already doing, or like
could better support, engage in.
Or like, yeah, you know, like this thing could go a million ways, but as an alternative to doom scrolling, it's like, it's sort of like the opposite of doom scrolling to me, which is like, I know if I had this thing and I got to think about these, I would feel better.
We need to keep a little light on inside.
Yeah.
This thing won't work without a little light on inside each of us about it. So that's how I'm currently framing it, is what systems and skills, ways of being that we can currently tap into or start or re-engage in so that our generation is doing its part towards this 100-year project.
Yeah.
It feels so, like, I get chills every time saying it and being like, I want to be part of the 100-year project.
Right. It certainly feels better to reframe your being alive as like being a part of something that's going to make things better for people who come behind you. That certainly feels a lot better than like what I've spent a lot of time doing, which is like just trying to like ignore anything that I feel like I can't do anything about, and not take too much responsibility for things I assume I don't have any control over. Some of this true, some of this not.
Well, and I think to the thing you just said, which is, I really liked that by saying, like, couching it as 100 years, you also, we don't have to feel wholly 100% responsible for what the immediate next generation faces. It's that generation will also have a role to play in the following generation. Like, all of us, this is a 100-year project. This is not just about, like, I think one of the things that always made me feel really overwhelmed is, like, if you only think about it as 2 generations, what this one has done to the next one, it continues a blame system.
Yeah.
Which we kind of did with boomers, where we're just like, y'all like marched for 2 years and then called it good, you know?
Sure.
And you then just fully kicked into a consumerist culture. And here we are still with the same problem that we are about to pass on to Zoomers or whatever, right? So it's like this blame system versus like, what are we each doing to support a 100-year project? And we can move the needle that makes it a little easier for the next generation.
Yeah.
And they have to move the needle to make it a little better for the next generation. And as an aside, acknowledging that we have 30 years for some severe catastrophic situations to happen. So it's not, but even that, I think even when we hear that, it doesn't acknowledge that it still, even that feels like Western myopic thinking, where like it's obsessed with only yourself and your immediate generation, your immediate like children's generation. And I'm like, versus, you know, a lot of indigenous cultures who are like, we're not just thinking about 30 years, no matter how catastrophic those might be. We're thinking about including creature generations, you know?
Yeah.
Where this earth is a complex creature full of creatures that will exist in the future regardless.
Yeah.
Some may not.
Right.
Anyway, sorry, it's a whole other thing. Should we move?
Yeah, we're gonna move. One last thing though.
Yes.
I was like, just wanted to close at least on this, which is like, I think outside of like what actions we can take or things we can do to help be like a part of this chain, this 100-year chain, like I think doing anything, thinking about other people will produce like a change in you. This is something I believe. So like, I just think like just maybe there's just by doing anything, I think you will like look at people differently. That's just my guess. And so like something I think is important about the future or about how we're living is like really small things, like how you are treating like people in your immediate surroundings might be just as important as like some kind of change you can make to your like consuming habits. Like I just think it's really important to, if you can like produce some kind of little change on like a micro level, I just personally think that there's something really vital about that. And it has nothing to do really with like responsibility. It's it's just like maybe a little change in mindset that happens when we like start thinking about other people. That's like really positive. That makes everyone feel like much better. So these are topics I've been reflecting on lately. And I just felt like I had to say that because I like mentioned responsibility, and like to me, it's not exactly why I'm driven to do anything necessarily. So yeah,
I think that's a good one to come back to.
that is a good one to come back to.
Okay. Let's go move to our gate and see if we missed, or rather, if it's still on,
See if we
still on
missed our
time,
flight.
delayed on time.